Why we gotta do this every time I have you? Yes, I do. Yes, yes. It's like I'm gonna start recording, so you gotta be a hog. You gotta hog the camera. Listen, I'm gonna be honestly. Look, I'm gonna be real with you, and just like you should do yourself a favor and just unsubscribe now. I am turning 39 next week. I was born in 1985. So 39 years on this godforsaken rock. And I had never seen Robocop until a month ago. You can unsubscribe now. Go ahead. It's cool. It is what it is. My name is Crumbine. If you don't know, I am a professional storyteller and amateur YouTuber and a multi hyphenate creative wizard. I don't like putting that multi hyphenate creative stuff into these videos because I do that in my day job, and I do so many other things. Like these YouTube videos. uh, That's why I kind of say amateur YouTuber. One, it's hilariously ironic considering the platform. But two, uh, I want to make these things as simple as possible. So this is the watch list, and this is um, RoboCop versus RoboCop. What I do here, if this is your first time, I just sit down and talk about movies or television shows, whatever I'm currently watching and engaged in and enjoying. These are not reviews. I don't really like reviews. I don't like when people recap stories. I don't like when I don't like the short 10 minutes. I enjoy talking in depth about things. So if you want something short, if you want something that recaps either version of these RoboCops that I'm talking about tonight in this video, go somewhere else. If you want like really deep, critical, deep dives about the themes of each of these movies, uh, go somewhere else. I guess I don't know. These are thoughtful, thoughtful critiques, thoughtful rambling critiques. Hang out, talk about movies that we like, rag on movies we don't like, find the reasons that perhaps something works or doesn't work. I really do like um finding the heart of something, and finding what a movie can hang its hat on. So background, rah, rah, yada yada yada. um RoboCop and RoboCop. So I've never seen the original 1987 version, and certainly had never seen the remake. Why would I watch the remake if I had never seen the original? So in the last month now, I have watched both of these movies twice. Watched the first one because it was a reference film for a project that I'm working on, or I'm helping develop. And then, since I was watching the original, I figured I'd make it a double feature and watch the second one. And then, because I took so long to get to this video, BT Dubs, if you were holding your breath for the promise of when I originally said I was going to release this, I apologize. I doubt anyone actually cared or was holding their breath, but you know how it goes. Life has a way of getting in the way, and it has literally taken me. So I would have shot on Tuesday, so Tuesday, Wednesday, today is Thursday. It's taking me three whole days to kind of get into uh, the headspace and clear up mental bullshit that I've been dealing with. Anyway, that's for another vlog, I would say. That is not the watch list. So yes, I've seen both of these movies twice now, and as I the theme as as I have established in this intro is to do yourself a favor and unsubscribe, um, and to put a cherry on top of that theme. I'm gonna give you a spoiler for this whole video. I like the 2014 version better. Go on. Like I said, unsubscribe. It's cool. It's cool. I get it. I get it. Anyway, edit. Not a lot of edits, but a little. Some context for this video. Uh, Personal context, a little bit, is that I recently had the privilege of reading a good friend's first novel. They were apprehensive about sharing it with me in the first place. There was uh, a few weeks of not receiving the novel, after I said I was more than willing to read it. Um, and I think it was kind of um, because I have my own library, and there was just some apprehension on their part for having me read their material. And honestly, like, I was apprehensive too, because right, so here's the thing about unknown writers, new ones doubly so. um they suck. Yeah, they suck. And the thing is, you can usually tell within the first few pages of a manuscript. I would know. I have started to read a lot of incredibly shitty novels, first novels or second or third novels from equally shitty novice writers. Uh, and I would be lying if I said I wasn't apprehensive about reading a friend's novel, because oh my god, what if it was bad? That was a very real thing that could have been the case. Um, Long story short, that was not the case. My friend's novel, simply put, was phenomenal. It both blew me away in how good it was, um, because it was a debut novel, because this was their first effort. I read a lot, and I typically judge a book by how quickly I get through it. And um this 100,000 plus word tome, I got through in less than a week. And the whole time I was constantly struck with these surprising similarities between my friend's novel and my own body horror monster comedy novel, Don't Be a Monster Dick. Um, so both feature in some fashion a giant throbbing cock, penis. Don't Be a Monster Dick. His our hero's junk falls off and turns into a monster and terrorizes the city. My one sentence log line on that. But both of these books featured gratuitous sex scenes that spanned multiple chapters. Both books dealt with themes of toxicity, gender, um, and this was this was like very real, very seriously. They dealt with themes of art and creativity. Creativity was a very main theme in Don't Be a Monster Dick. A secondary character, Chuck, he's a beatboxer, or was learning to become a beatboxer, um, in Monster Dick. And that becomes a very important, critical element to the story, along with the musical. There's a reason I have an original soundtrack, an unofficial original soundtrack for a novel. Music plays a big part in the story, and becomes very critical in the climax, the finale. But so I'm sitting there like I'm reading my friend's novel, and like there's so many similarities. Don't get me wrong, they are two very different stories. It couldn't be more different than the monster cock horror thing that I wrote. Um, at the end of the day, I was humbled. A weird word to use, but I was privileged and very humbled that my friend allowed me to read this story, read this draft of their art. Um, that was that 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 was a big deal, for them and for me. I think it was a big deal for them. At any rate, the thing is though, where I take a story and a thematic level approach, uh, a story, as in story structure and plot, and a thematic level approach to, and again, all the themes that I just talked about, to my storytelling. That's the approach to my storytelling. And I also have this get in, get out kind of efficiency. I I like to read efficient and shorter stories. So that's what I also like to write. I don't like languishing over um pages and pages of description, I like to move things along. Versus my friend and their novel, where they wove these spectacularly rich, which is not to say that my characters in my story were lacking in any way, just that just that theirs were so much more. Okay, so look, both books are good, possibly even great. Definitely Monster Dick. That is the great novel. I don't want to prop my friend up too much. You always have to aim. You have to have something to aim for, right? In the long run, you don't want to peak too early in anything, right? Um, but despite the similarities of the two books, they're obviously very different. And I think it comes down to the style of the storyteller. Like I said, story and plot driven versus character driven. To grossly oversimplify, and 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 it comes down to, probably more importantly, the preference of the reader, and as utterly fucking unrelated as that tangent may seem, I share that story, one, to embarrass my friend. Hopefully, if they're watching and they feel like outing themselves in the comments, go for it. Uh, but also, this is exactly how I feel about RoboCop versus RoboCop. So when I watched the 1987 version, the original RoboCop, I was very pleasantly surprised. I expected cheesy 80s over the top action and a film that would not hold up. I expected that this was a movie made in the 80s and when looked at through the lens of modern culture, modern politics, modern society, modern creative styles, it was going to be a cringe fest. That's what I was expecting. And instead, the reality of the 1980 RoboCop 1987 is that it is a frankly stunning accomplishment of filmmaking, especially considering the period that it was made in. Uh, let's be real. RoboCop, a man gets uh, killed, almost killed, and is saved by by being turned into a cyborg, owned by a corporation and working on the police force. This is a premise that is so absurdly dumb that certainly in the 80s, like why it just has no business being as good as it is. Uh so if you're familiar with RoboCop at all, it's no surprise like the theme of the movie and the point of the movie is that it's the satirical take of corporate overreach, the corporate infiltration of our society. In RoboCop's case, the police force, public service that is the police force, and it totally, of course, it totally works. Certainly, I think when it's viewed through that 1987 lens. But today, like I was saying, bringing that modern perspective to the picture today, I don't think it's very satirical to point out that corporations own everything and capitalism is destroying the world and everything in it. It's just depressing. It's obvious, it's depressing, and you have to. uh, It's also overplayed, if not tropey. I think you have to, and tropey, which we could probably thank RoboCop for establishing that. Corporations control everything trope. For establishing that. I think you know. 'Cause again, like Monster Dick, it's the military industrial complex and the missile manufacturer. It's if you're going to play with that kinda with those themes, you have to go. I think you have no choice but to go a little bit deeper. Again, for 1987, that was probably as deep as it needed to go as if it was. I again, not doing any major research, I don't know if RoboCop is the root of, the evil corporation, um, narrative trope, which again, not much of a narrative trope, it's just a sad, depressing reality that we have to deal with every fucking day. RoboCop was ahead of its time, maybe, in that respect. It works. My point is the satirical thrust of that film works. The themes of that film work in a vacuum through the not no through the lens through the lens as also a testament of filmmaking and storytelling for 1987. What doesn't hold up, and I anticipated this, but I didn't know, like, I didn't I anticipated this, but I didn't know what to anticipate, if that makes sense. What absolutely doesn't hold up is the pre-digital age, if not the pre-2020. Ugh, cringe. The glorification of law enforcement and the subsequent violence in service of that glorification of law enforcement. I don't know. Obviously, 2020 was a major turning point, but like these issues existed long before that, and I'm kind of like, again, like, not doing that much research into the reality of how law enforcement is depicted, but I think culturally we have gotten to a point, and I think 2020 was really that point where it's really hard to look at anything that portrays law enforcement in a really positive light, because they are not the heroes that we want them to be, that Hollywood wants them to be. And again, it's just a sad, depressing reality that old media uh, got really, really wrong. And that's something that, we have to, that's something that's just going to be on our record, right? That's something we have to deal with. So I expected, like, it was going to be a little rough to watch all of the violence in that served as glorification of law enforcement, and even through that 1980s lens, that violence was still hard to watch. I am not huge on, like, it doesn't really bother me, but I am also not huge on um uh so, like, Gladiator. John Wick is a great example. I have a hard time watching John Wick. I got I I think I got through. I was like mostly through the second one, and it was just like the senselessness of all of the murder. Even though I kept thinking about the Clerks line, the Clerks argument, right? I think it was Clerks. Uh, all the people on the Death Star that died, like, a lot of them were just, janitors and technicians, and they weren't like super villains. Darth Vader and the Emperor, like, of course, they're like actual bad guys, but there are also a lot of just, Joe Blows. And there's that argument. There was a great there was that great piece of dialogue, that argument, well, they still signed up for the Empire, so maybe they deserved to be murdered and blown to bits, or maybe they didn't, and maybe they still, like, when I watch when I'm watching something like John Wick, like, I know and he's mowing through all of these henchmen and all of like, it just, like, for my stomach for that is a little on the weak side for the senseless violence, the gore, senseless gore. Not a big fan of that. Uh, was I don't think RoboCop, like, certainly by today's standards, was not uh so explicit or gory, but in the context of that glorification of law enforcement, that's where it became challenging to watch. But still, the point remains. Uh, it's a silly fucking premise, and that 1987 version surprisingly handled it masterfully. which is a great place to end the conversation about Robocop. I've not watched any of the sequels. I don't know that I will watch any of the sequels. If that movie existed in a bubble all by itself, again, I just think like, oh wow, it is great that this film exists as a product of the 1980s, that this story was able to be told. But then they remade it. And one of the reasons I like doing these comparative critiques is that when you look at films through the lenses of similar or other or another film that shares characteristics, you then get some insight as to what, better insight into what works and what didn't work. Remakes, of course, are very on the nose on that because they are, it's the same character, same material, same general story, right? And watching these two movies back to back was really interesting and a surprising experience for me because, like I said at the top, the 2014 version did everything the original version wanted to do, but better. Sorry for purists or people who really like RoboCop. I'm gonna get to this line later, but this line, it just grabbed me so hard, and when I went back to try to find it, and I've had to do it a couple of times, I was like, wow, it's like this line grabbed me so hard, and when I went back to look for it, it was such a small line, and almost like if you're not paying attention, you'll miss it. When in the new in 2014 version, he's brought back, he wakes up for the first time, and he starts moving, and he finally realizes the cybernetics, and he says, "Take this off me now."
I know I'm dreaming because I can feel all of this. What the hell did you do to me?
You need to relax.
Take this off me now.
You need to relax.
I need to get out of this thing.
What did you do to me?
Okay, so look, the 1987 version. This is I think this is the simplest way to look at these two movies. The 1987 version is about the machine becoming a man. Alex Murphy in 1987 is brought back to life, and he is more machine than man, and then he learns as he goes how to become human again. But it's almost, that's kind of a subplot to the story. It's not the main thrust of the story. 1987, it's about the machine becoming a man, and 2014 is about a man becoming a machine who then has to find his way back to being a man again, being a human again. I don't mean to genderize it, but I mean it is a man, but it is about the humanity of it. That difference is everything. That difference is why 2014 hits you here, where 1987, oh wow, this is a testament to filmmaking for the 1980s. 2014 this is a great sci-fi film, but oh my god, this hits me right here because it's telling a very painful human story. So, coming full circle, like the novels written by myself and my friend, the 1987 version of RoboCop is more about plot and story, where the 2014 version is more about the characters and the human experience of these characters. Still does that great sci-fi element, still does it does all of the things the original did, but it brings this human layer, this deep human conflict to it, and it makes it so much more rich. Um, it's a movie. It's a movie that I am surprised it took me so long, and I'm upset with myself for having not seen it before, because it is such a strong story and a strong vision for that RoboCop uh, franchise, I suppose. So filmmaking is this is me jumping into a note and not entirely knowing where I was going with the note. So bear with me. Bear with me as I bear with myself. Filmmaking is a collaborative, creative experience, from the screenwriter to the director to the actors to tons more in between. This is me realizing where I was going with this note. So, where a screenwriter or a director may perhaps prefer that story and plot driven narrative, I doubt you will ever find an actor who doesn't prefer the character driven stuff, because that's what an actor does. They want the material to sink their teeth into, that they can chew over, that they can get that line.
Take this off me now.
You need to
I
relax.
need to get out of this thing.
What did you do to me?
It's just a simple line, but like he can't get it off him. At that he wants to. It's his body. It is, but it's not his body. And like, it's such a powerful moment that as a performer, to bring those moments to life, that's a fucking cool thing. I'm not sure 1987 really had that kind of depth to it. It was just, oh, man becomes robot, and he has his quippy one-liners, right? You're dead or alive, you're coming with me. This movie had so much material for the actors to really dive into, and you go right down the line, like I've been saying. Like, you start with Joel Kinnaman's performance. He has this crazy, as Alex Murphy, he has this crazy arc where you get to see him as, mirrors kind of mirrors the original, where you see him as just a regular guy, a regular member of the police force doing his job. But then he dies, then he's brought back, or almost dies again. And that's the thing. You see that arc where he's a man that gets turned into a machine, who then has to find his human. Like, when he's brought back, I think that's the point. When he's brought back, when he's booted up for the first time as RoboCop, he is still Alex Murphy, which pulls in the doctor character, Gary Oldman's character, Dr. Dennett Norton. Like, there's such a love and caring from that doctor. It's again another great performance. I loved his introductions when the movie sets up the cybernetics component, and that connection between the brain and the cybernetics, when he's teaching, or he's helping the patient get comfortable playing the guitar again with his robo hands, which seeded that really critical plot point that if you get too emotional, you lose that connection. And it was on the second time viewing it, it was like, that's such a fucking heavy concept. And he says it. It's there in the scene, but it was the second time watching it where it really fucking hit me. He needs to be emotional to play his music. But too much emotion, and he loses control of his cybernetics. and that's so fun. Like in that tiny little scene, they spelled out the tragedy of this story and this concept, and I think that's really what sets 2014 apart so much. Like 1987 is the cheesy concept done well. 2014 is a tragedy. A sci-fi tragedy. It really is. So you got Joel Kinnaman's headlining performance, the line that I've talked about so much. Then again, Gary Oldman as the Doctor, but still, like in 1987, you've got the CEO and you've got the executives at the corporation, and they're played like the 1980s executives, which is to say, again, it that not it 1987 needed to go deeper. It just kind of stayed a little bit at the surface. Not that there was anything wrong with that, but it's effective, efficient storytelling. Come to 2014, you've got Michael fucking Keaton. You've got Jackie Earl Haley stepping in as the villains. Uh, these are I think everyone has, like, Jackie Earl Haley is not like a great grand performance, but like almost everyone, like it's serviceable. It's not like he did a bad job. I just think like he had a very where Michael Keaton was the actual evil villain of the story. Jackie Earl Haley had to be the military villain, the military component of it. So he did exactly what he was supposed to do with it. But like almost everyone delivers such fucking powerful career performances. And I think that might be a little crazy for me to be saying. It sounds a little crazy, but like Michael Keaton is phenomenal as this villain. And it was almost like, so it's 2014. You know, it's not like the Steve Jobs, Elon Musk tech genius trope. It was not already out there, but it was also prior to it being as overplayed as it is now. So that Michael Keaton got to play that and played it so distinctly and original from the tropes that we see now. Again, like these guys, they all did. Sam Jackson playing the right wing commentator. They're all like there's so many A-list performances in this movie that underscores and brings out the humanity of this picture. Again, a humanity that was lacking by the nature of the efficiency of 1987, but it was still lacking in that film. So the human performance, I think, is necessary to paint the tragic portrait. We kind of already said it. That's what really sets it. The 2014 version ends up being a tragedy thematically, so much more so than the original material. So you need complex human performances to paint that tragic portrait of a man becoming a machine, of Murphy having his humanity ripped away from him, when Norton is fucking with his brain and removing Murphy's ability to actually feel and be human. Even though he has every reason to hold on to it, he still has his wife and his kid. He still loves his wife and his kid. He still and we get to see that, which is really cool. It wasn't like it's not like, other films I've criticized, that we've got a problem with telling and not showing. RoboCop 2014 absolutely showed when Murphy is in his is in hi- when Murphy is in his dehumanized robo mode. uh we still get to see him care for his family, and it starts out with him investigating his own murder, but we get to see how that tragedy impacted his son, how it impacted his wife, and what those impacts then does to him in drawing that tiny nugget of humanity back to the forefront. Powerful fucking storytelling, guys. He literally has to struggle to find his way back. It's really well done. It's really engaging. 1987 doesn't have bad performances, but again, there's an efficiency in the storytelling. So it just the that original structure and narrative and characters, they just didn't have the depth of the 2014 version. So there wasn't the material there for the actors to go deeper. So 2014 fixes the problems with the original. The police in 2014 are corrupt almost through and through, aside from, it's far more representative of reality. Like, kind of just the entire institution is fucked up. Not everyone in it. Like, there's still some, good guys out there, but for the most part, law enforcement, fuck you, right? So the police are not depicted as the saviors of Detroit. Again, that was the bitter pill to swallow in the 1987 version. The military industrial complex is depicted as the villain that we all know it to be. So we're not turning a blind eye. Like, the filmmakers don't turn a blind eye to the reality of the world, right? And the corporation in the 2014 version is the same toxic capitalistic shit show it always was and always will be. But again, in the 14 version, there's a lot more depth to that, and the characters. Jay Baruchel plays the marketing director, whatever. Like, there's so much more color and depth brought to that corporation through the characters. It paints the picture, especially in the end when Jay throws up his hands and goes, I'm just marketing. Like, it really painted that picture of the Death Star problem, the Death Star conundrum, right? So all of that makes Murphy struggle to reclaim his humanity really so much more interesting. It's that arc of these toxic forces in our world literally stripping his humanity away so shareholders make more money. And then Murphy rejects all of those things. It's in the movie, and this is why it's a better film. He rejects the institution of law enforcement, right on down the line. Obviously the corporations, the industrial military complex. He rejects all of that, and it leads to the reclamation of his humanity. It's interesting. Like, they turn him into the perfect law enforcement officer, and he does have to reject that. Because the game is fucking rigged and it doesn't work, and he still needed to be human in order to he still needed his humanity in order to serve justice, which is not law enforcement justice, but like moral justice at the end of the day, right? His humanity, reclaiming his humanity was literally the only thing he had left in that final climax in order to save his wife and son. Powerful fucking shit, man. So RoboCop is a really fucking great modern sci-fi film. Um, dare I say, does justice to the original concept, the original absurdly dumb premise of RoboCop. It does justice to it so much better than the 1987 version ever could have. If you're still watching, I don't know why. Unsubscribe. It's a weird it's a different take. If you're still watching, you probably should subscribe at this point. If you're not, give it a like. It lets YouTube know that I'm not completely batshit crazy. Although your opinion at this point probably differs. I'm the guy who likes the 2014 version of RoboCop more than the original. Yeah, that's gonna go on a tombstone. As we wind this down, one of the big problems is that it's still the 2014 version still exists in the shadow of the original. Again, I keep saying it, like, OG RoboCop isn't a bad film. I was genuinely surprised with how good it was. But it is different. It's very different. And I always think of Solo, a Star Wars story, in this context, which came out in 2018, so it came later. There were lessons that it should have learned from RoboCop and didn't. The 2014 RoboCop might have been a little bit better, or at least met with a little less hostility, if it wasn't called RoboCop. It's a great sci-fi film. It's a great portrait of like this tragic loss of humanity. It's well acted. It's well shot. It's well directed. The music, granted, the music in 1987 was banger, and when they recycle that theme, it continues to be banger in 2014. Solo could have been about, without changing anything in the movie, other than the name of that character, Han Solo. It could have then been about this original story, about an original character in the Star Wars universe. Everything would have stayed exactly the same. You just changed the name of that character. And that way, it wouldn't have existed in the shadow of the original trilogy. Han Solo, Harrison fucking Ford. It would have been appreciated on its own merits. And I think Solo has very solid merits to be appreciated for. It would have been appreciated on its own merits versus, rather than through the lens of our reductive, repetitive remake, reboot, fucking cycle media culture. I don't think the outrage for 2014 RoboCop was as palpable as Solo, but it's the same fucking problem. And it's a shame, no matter how you slice it, because again, 2014 RoboCop was a great film, was a fun film. It was a powerful film. Solo is a good film. I haven't rewatched that recently, so I don't want to. Don't want to wreck too much of what's left of my reputation, whatever the fuck that is. But yeah, that's my RoboCop versus RoboCop deep dive. I hope you enjoyed it. As always, I enjoy making these, and the point of doing this has always been to reach out through the intertubes and connect with some people. This is something I like doing. I love talking about film and television, and deep diving onto this stuff a little bit. Again, I'm not trying to be a scholar or anything. I'm just really speaking. I have notes, but I'm just like speaking off the cuff, like how these things impact me, and as a writer and a storyteller, like what strikes me, and what occurs to me when I watch these. Because I find that I tend to have different opinions sometimes than other people. So uh, again, like if you've made it this, if you were sitting there watching this or listening to this, these are great things to listen to, by the way. If you're not just listening, YouTube, if you use YouTube Premium, you can get the like downloads and background plays. Great just to listen to, just like all of my other stuff. Audiobooks, lots and lots of listenable content. Great ways to fill the boring work hours if you need to, shut off your brain while you're pushing buttons in the corpo reboot recycle culture, whatever. I don't know. But seriously, thank you so much for hanging out and listening to me ramble about RoboCop and RoboCop gush a little bit over the new one. I don't know what's next. I don't know what's like. If you have any film recommendations or TV recommendations, I'm very happy right now. Like I said, I have a birthday coming up next week, and probably the best thing that I could have ever wanted or hoped for was the last season of Star Trek Discovery. So I got to watch the first two episodes of that today, and it's again, I know a lot of people hate that one too, but it holds a very special place in my heart, that show. So I'm very much going to enjoy the final run with these guys. So yeah, I don't know what I'm going to do next for the watch list. So if you have recommendations or suggestions as to what you would like to watch with me, I don't know if y'all took the note and watched either of these movies to have this discussion, but I'll take some recommendations. That's cool. Uh, yeah, and I do. Next up, I am getting back to honestly Crumbine, so I'm very excited about the stuff, the Act Two stuff, and also just getting back into um some honest, like real fucking shit vlogging. This stuff is fun. This stuff is good, but also like, oh, I'm jotting notes down. Like, oh yeah, that probably need to talk about that. Probably need to deep dive into some other shit over here and get that expression and uh perspective. Uh, yeah. Eh, anyway, that'll do it. That'll do it. You should subscribe and then unsubscribe. 39 and only just watched RoboCop. It's fucked up.